Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Daniel Hendrick Experience. As usual, I am super glad you're here, and I'm super excited about our guest today. But before we get to our guest, I want to remind you all to go to danielhendrick.com, select the podcast, go there to the podcast site. It's called Buzzsprout. And please become a member, a subscriber. It's only $3 a month, and it helps keep all of this going. And while you're at the website, also check out my book. It's called Know You Know, and it chronicles my journey of being an opera singer, losing my voice early in my career in Milan, Italy, in the Caruso competition, and then my journey of about 8 years of trying to get my voice back, consulting doctors and teachers all over the world to no avail. And finally, through divine intervention, a guiding light helped me to get my voice back, and I made my debut in Lincoln Center in Mephistopheles with the great Mark Delavan. So if you get a chance, pick up that book. Also, while you're on my website, if you're interested in singing lessons, you'll see a link there that talks all about what I discovered after losing my voice and what now I pass on to professional singers all over the world. So reach out to me. I'd be glad to help you out. Now, back to our guest of the day, Gregorio Gonzalez. He began his opera career in 2002 after being hired as a resident artist by the great Placido Domingo at the Los Angeles Opera. Since then, Gregorio has sung extensively throughout the United States, Mexico, and Europe. Later invitations by the LA Opera led to other performances, including appearances in 2 Placido Domingo and Friend Gala concerts. Obviously, he became a favorite of Placido Domingo. We love that. And he has performed with many of the world's great opera houses, including the Opera Theater of St. Louis, the Dutch National Opera, Chicago Opera Theater, Israeli Opera, New York City Opera, Connecticut Opera, the Virginia Opera, Des Moines Metro Opera, San Diego Opera, my hometown, the San Diego Comic Opera, and the Netherlands Opera, and many, 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 many more. He's also had a lot of quite impressive quotes about his career. Placido Domingo said of Gregorio, quote, Gregorio possesses a beautiful and musical voice. The credibility of his acting skills bring tremendous stage presence to his performances. Another quote said, Gregorio, pitch perfect in voice and look. And still another one, Gregorio, a passionate and rich voice and youthful fervor. And finally, one more. The quote reads, his robust Italian voice, abetted by his lively stage presence, was in fine form throughout and proved the night's major discovery. So I'm really excited to retouch, to reconnect with my dear friend Gregorio Gonzalez and just see what happened in his life and his journey. These things I find incredibly fascinating because everybody has a little different story. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in the amazing Gregorio Gonzalez. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as advertised, we got the superstar with us here today, my hermano de Mexico, Gregorio Gonzalez. Thank you for being with us today, my friend. Tell us, where are you right now, my friend?
Thank you, brother. So good to be here. I'm in Austin. I moved to Austin about 5 years ago. And yeah, I'm in
Nice.
my tiny little studio where I come and record things, vocalize, learn parts, that sort of thing.
Excellent. So how long have we known each other? It's been maybe like, what, 15 years or something?
I would say, yeah, thereabouts. I think I came to you around 2009 when I came back from Europe. I had been living in
Okay.
Europe for a couple of years, and um, I wanted to stay in vocal shape, and I
Mm-hmm.
looked you up. I don't actually even remember. I mean, I knew of you, but I didn't know of you. I think I knew of you more as a singer than a teacher,
Aha.
and then
Aha.
somebody must have recommended you, and I came to you, and we started to do some good work. It
Mm-hmm.
was my goal to not fall out of vocal shape. So thank you for
Excellent.
being there for that
Hey,
important part of
hope
my life.
hope it helped, young fella.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, tell us, how in the world did you get started in this opera thing? What was the thing? Did you grow up singing in church, or I ask everybody the same question.
No, I mean, I moved from Mexico when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
Growing up in Mexico, you there's always music around, right?
Ah.
And I come from a very numerous family. My father had 13 siblings. My mother had seven. So I had hundreds of cousins after a while. Um,
Wow.
and in family gatherings, celebrations, there's always a mariachi, a trio, or I in high school over there, which I did a couple of years of high school in Mexico before I moved here. I got involved with the rondalla, which is an ensemble of guitars and voices.
Mm.
And I just developed a huge love for music, and I didn't actually know that singing was going to be it because I also played the guitar a little bit, but I really wanted to study music. Things got a little rough for my family around that time. Well, a couple of years before then, we had moved from a different neighborhood. My mom used to have a stationery business. She used to sell school supplies on the outskirts of town, and it was a lovely neighborhood to have grown up in, but little by little started to become not very safe. So then she moved us downtown, and she lost her business. So there wasn't
Mm.
that source of income anymore. We started to struggle a little bit. And then she had this opportunity to actually come to the US as a migrant worker.
Wow. Okay.
And I mean, she was a highly educated woman, but she wasn't afraid of anything. And she wanted something better for us. She wanted us to have an education. And for me, it was going to be near impossible to get into a conservatory in Mexico because I would have had to have a lot of money to pay for that. There's
Mm.
no public music instruction really beyond just going to take lessons at the Casa de la Cultura, learn chords, that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, and she really wanted us to have a good education. So she came, she was contracted as an agricultural worker, and she worked in the fields for several states actually, and uh, would tell us about her experience. How she'd end up at the end of the day covered in all this dust, which was
Right.
the stuff they spray on the produce and so forth.
Oh my God. The
Horrible conditions.
insecticide, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. Thank God that she never really got sick from that. She didn't do it very long, but she did long enough that she earned her green card from that. And so a year after that, she came to Mexico and picked us up and brought us to the States.
How great.
And that, I mean, I owe my career to her. I owe everything to her, and my dad too. The rest of my family.
Wow.
They've been so
That,
supportive for this. So yeah, so we came here. I started studying music. I didn't know I was going to be singing. I graduated from high school. I decided to do a couple of auditions, tape auditions for a couple of universities, conservatories. I was accepted into three conservatories, which was I mean, for me, it was just a fluke. I was just like, I'm going to send these and see what happens. At the time, I was just singing with the chorus in the high school, nothing really serious. And I got accepted to all three of them: Boston
wow.
Conservatory, New England, and Westminster Choir College.
Had you been exposed to opera at all during that time, or was this still
I
not?
mean, not really opera per se. I mean, I've been exposed to some classical singing, but the thing is, I was in the chorus, and in order for me to do these audition tapes, I had to learn a classical piece, and I literally had to go to my teacher from my choir and say, "What do I sing?" And like, "Caro mio ben, here, learn this." And he taught me Caro mio ben, and basically I got into, well, I didn't get into this. I accepted into the schools, but I wasn't able to afford and pay for that. I was just fresh from Mexico. We didn't have anything. I didn't even have a job. there was no way for me to go. So I had to go for a
Wow.
different route. I went to Palmer College, where, of course, things were much more affordable, community college.
Sure. That's a college in San Diego area, folks.
It's San Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a time when the faculty was just incredibly talented. I mean, all
Mm.
around. I started studying voice with Dr. Stanford, Connie Venti, eventually moved on to Ann Chase, who prepared me for my first competition, which I won. And so it was those voice lessons that developed me a lot for singing, and specifically classical singing, because that's what they would train you with. They would train you with,
Okay.
simpler art songs, the 24 Italian art songs.
Mm-hmm.
After a year, you get an aria and you give it a try. And I just fell in love with it. So that's the route I decided to go. I was especially hooked after winning my first competition, and and that encouraged me to continue to pursue other competitions, and that kind of paved the road for me. Yeah.
Well, you've had a very, very unusual career and kind of a star-studded career at the same time because you ended up becoming an apprentice at the LA Opera with Placido. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It was not an easy path. I first started working for the San Diego Opera, and I was in the chorus for a couple of years, which of course
Okay.
exposed me for the first time to being on this stage, watching firsthand some of these magnificent singers that they used to bring. This was a time before, San Diego Opera struggled and started to kind of dissolve and then
Yes.
recreate itself. Um, and so I very much enjoyed that, just being able to be on the stage, just watching the singers do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to get my foot in the door at the LA Opera, so I went and I did an audition for the opera course there, and I got in, and I did, I think, two productions in the choir there. During which time I was commuting every day, like 3 hours there, 3 hours back. It was
Wow.
mad, but at least it gave me then that other opportunity to, in a way, get my foot in the door. Also, other factors kind of aligned in that I have just won the Los Angeles Opera, the Metropolitan Opera auditions in the Los Angeles region, so the regionals there.
Mm.
That opened up the door for me to do an audition for Placido Domingo. I actually was slated to have an audition for the Young Artist program at the Washington National Opera, where he was
Mm-hmm.
also a director at the time. But I met some people after the regionals of the Met in Los Angeles, and through some talks and asking them to help me out and seeing if they could set up that audition in LA instead of Washington, so I didn't have to go all the way out there. They
Right.
actually they helped me with that. I did my audition for Placido in Los Angeles, and he asked me if I just wanted to stay and be an artist in Los Angeles instead of Washington. So that just it's like
Mm.
a love to hand. It just incredible.
Gracias a Dios.
Yeah. So I stayed in LA. I was a resident artist there. Was a position that generally lasts 1 year. He ended up asking me for 2 more years. So I was there as a resident artist for a total of 3 years. And yeah, I mean, that was an incredible whole other experience as well.
And then you eventually got to sing with Placido a few times too, right?
Well, during that time, I did probably about a dozen productions during my time there as a resident artist. And during those 3 years, there were two Placido Domingo and Friends concerts, which he would
Right.
do periodically. It was kind of one of those, how opera companies they do a number of productions of opera and grand opera or modern opera even, and then they do something kind of off the beaten path, like a concert or something like that. So
Yes.
he would do this every couple of years, and I was invited to sing in those concerts.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I think I was one of the last singers to be on the stage, hearing him sing, Othello's fourth act, which, yeah, it's, I don't know how many singers can say that. You have to hear the last of
Wow.
Placido Domingo's high note singing Othello. Um, So yeah, there were those productions, and then there were other productions. We did Nicholas and Alexander, for example. My debut at the LA Opera was in La Fanciulla del West,
Mm.
where he sang the lead role in that. And
Okay.
that was another phenomenal experience. Yeah, that's actually my debut right there in that frame. You can't quite see it from the shine of the
Okay.
light,
Uh-huh. That's
but that was a great
wonderful.
experience.
And what
Also
was
because in LA, being so close to the film industry, they would bring in a lot of people from Hollywood, like stunts, doubles, and people who would train fight choreography, that thing. So that scene
mm.
was actually with a team. Mainly, one of the guys, he was the guy that trained I think Michelle Pfeiffer and the Catwoman with the whip.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Celebrities. That's all. That's the advantage of
yeah.
being an LA opera.
And for me, it was fun. I just really thoroughly enjoy those the staging of those type scenes. So that was a fantastic introduction to the LA Opera, to be honest with you. Placido Domingo on the stage, being with all of these celebrities and
Wow.
stunt scenes with fight choreographers, that sort of thing. That was very exciting.
Can you describe what his voice was like on stage? What did it feel like? Did it sound as big as it does like on recordings, or was it? What was it like? Was it?
It was electrical.
Mm,
Electrical. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. Everything you wanted it to be and more, really.
wow.
Um, but then even better because you get to hear the human side. There's just certain
Mm,
elements of expressivity you just don't hear in our recording. Uh,
yes.
but also you got to hear him work on his method. How he would take care of his voice, when he would
Mm.
mark, how he would mark. Um,
Can you explain to the folks out there what marking is?
So marking is basically when you don't use your full voice and you either take things down an octave in certain places when it starts to get really high in order to save the voice, because opera singing, we're doing very, very difficult type stuff. I mean, it's like acrobatic type stuff for the voice.
Yes.
So when you're doing this day in and day out, throughout the rehearsal process, you want to make sure that you arrive at the actual performances with a fresh
With a
and
voice.
full voice, so that you can really thrill your audiences with your real instrument and not something that is tired or worn down. And so you have to opt to mark, which is what we call just taking care of the voice, basically. And so he would take things down an octave. He would sing in falsetto sometimes. Sometimes he would just really whisper. Sometimes he would just talk it, and things like that. Really
Wow.
fascinating. He just really was a master at taking care of his voice. He had to really learn how to do that because one day he was at the LA Opera. The next day he had flown somewhere else to do a concert. Comes back to do tech rehearsals, and then he was fresh this morning for
He
the performances.
Yeah, like nobody else in history. He was everywhere. And I think he did more roles than anybody in history, too. And his longevity has been unbelievable.
Which, as you know, is also not all that usual. I mean, professional singers, there are professional singers who made careers out of just singing 4 or 5 roles. I mean, he's
Yes.
over 100, so
Yes.
it's incredible. His versatility has been incredible.
Wow. So you probably remember that the reason I started singing in opera was because I heard Mario Lanza, right, and fell in love with that voice. And I'm
You
like,
talked about the
Man, I want to be that guy. And I had never heard opera before. Did you have a baritone that you were like, holy shit, that guy's amazing. I want to be like that? Or was it or a group of guys that inspired you?
well, I mean, I think it was more tenors that I looked at,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Cheryl Milnes, Ferruccio Furlanetto came to San Diego Opera a couple of times. That was quite impressive.
Mm.
Um, Nathan Gunn, I admired for a while. I actually got to cover him at Opera Theater of St. Louis. Um, who else? Well, Dmitry Vorostovsky, of course,
Mm.
whom actually I met by accident outside of my daughter's kindergarten in Vienna. She started playing.
Wow.
Sweet guy, so sweet. Um, And yeah, I mean, those were some of the people I would listen to.
And who were the tenors that you were loving back then?
Well, I mean, I grew up wanting to be Placido, basically.
Okay, right.
But I mean, I had a very special admiration for Pavarotti because his voice was just so unique. I mean, they both had unique voices,
Yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
also Carreras, had a very special timbre.
Yes.
When you put the three together in those concerts, that was just magic, and it was also because they each had a very distinctive sound.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something in each of those voices for everybody. Um, but I don't know. I admired Orlando Villazon during his young career,
Ooh, yes, absolutely.
um, and yeah, I mean there were many different sounds. A couple of singers who you actually tuned me into. Manuel, I forget his last name, Mexican. Um, but anyway, there weren't like specific singers. I was always listening to somebody different,
To
because I was
everybody.
always,
That's good.
yeah, aiming to hear something new. For a while, I studied with Michael Trimble, who
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow.
he didn't sing for a long time, but in his young years, his voice was amazing. There was a lot to be learned from his recordings of that time as well. So,
Yes. Wow. Do you have a favorite opera house that you sing at over the years?
yeah. Well, I mean, San Diego was very special because it was home.
Right.
As I made my first friendships there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a small world, the opera world. But San Diego was so special because I had everything going against me to become an opera singer, and San Diego gave me my very first opportunity. Um, and it's not an easy house to sing in, as you know. It's pretty big. The Civic Theater is pretty
It
big,
is big and kind of
and
dead.
acoustically, I'm not so sure that it was actually made for opera to be sung, and so it
Yes.
had its challenges. As far as a theater on the other end that was phenomenal to sing in acoustics wise, well, I mean, I have incredibly special memories of the Concertgebouw where I made my debut in Amsterdam in 2006. Incredible acoustics, incredible building, but also incredible audience. When we had done Poliuto, a concert version of Poliuto during that debut, and at the end for the bows, I come out and it's like they just heard an incredible rock star, and I didn't expect that at all. I was like,
That what? Are you talking about me?
so I hope I didn't seem too cold to the audience when I went out there to take my bow. But that was such a memorable experience. And of course, there's Theater an der
Wow.
Wien, which is where Mozart premiered Magic Flute, I believe it was. Beethoven was there
Mm.
for a while, and so there's houses like this that are full of history. That just being on the stage is like you just can't really believe it.
Exactly.
Old, beautiful, perfect acoustics. And then
Mm.
another very special place, of course, was my hometown theater of Teatro Juarez in Guanajuato, where I've had the opportunity to sing a couple times. So yeah, those are very, very special theaters to me.
I hope to sing in that theater myself coming
Oh,
up
you
one day.
will. You absolutely will. I mean, you're going to be what, like a half hour from there?
Yes.
So yeah, I look forward to when you do. Please invite me. I want to come hear you.
Okay.
I'll cheer you on.
Maybe we can do the fourth act Bohème duet together.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna come and clap. I'd love to sing with
Why
you.
not?
Yeah.
I'll dust off the old chords and bring it back.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Actually, I'm still singing. I'm just not doing the the opera thing, but still
Yeah.
singing. I'll never stop singing.
You
I
can.
wanted to ask you too. You sing at City Opera as well, right? New York City Opera.
Yeah, we did a modern piece called Fallujah, based on the story of a soldier with PTSD, a Marine who went through the Battle
Ooh,
of Fallujah and how he dealt with that afterwards.
wow.
Um, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun. We got to actually be trained by actual Marines and be in the whole gear. putting the vests and carrying the guns, and just really embodying or trying to embody what it was that they would go through on a daily basis being there. So yeah, that was a very interesting experience.
And that too is a big theater that's kind of dead. Did you feel that way as well?
Well, they didn't do it at the actual theater where they would normally do productions.
Ah, okay.
It was kind of a mobile version of it. So we ended
Got
up
it. Got it.
uh, we did it in a theater at 42nd Street,
Okay.
which also kind of lent itself for the piece to be much more intimate. Yeah, which is
Yes.
something the producers were going after anyway. So that was really cool. Yeah, new
How
experience.
wonderful. So you were telling me that when you were a little kid growing up in Mexico, there was music all around. Did you sing mariachi stuff back
Oh
then at
yeah,
all?
yeah. I mean, I moved to the US when I was 16, so there wasn't a lot of time to do that. But I remember when I was a kid, just hiding behind the couch, like pretending
Ah,
I wasn't singing, but really I was singing, And there was a mariachi, or there was a trio, or it was my uncle Toño with the guitar, who was
there you go.
my
Right.
very first teacher, in a way,
Mm.
a great influence in my life. So he encouraged me to learn how to play the guitar, and he said, if you learn these series of chords, you can have this
You got
guitar.
it.
So
Wow.
I practiced like a fiend. A couple of weeks later, I came back to him like, listen to this. We play what we called circles, círculos,
Uh-huh.
chord progressions, basically
Right.
to accompany like a bolero, that type of song.
Yes.
And he was like, okay, here's your guitar. And he gave me his very best guitar. It was a beautiful guitar
Amazing.
made of palo escrito, I believe, made in Paracho, Michoacan, um, where there's lots of guitar makers there that make beautiful guitars. And so, yeah, that was one of the highlights of my young life. I made out like a bandit with this guitar. And then I just continued to play it on my own, teach myself songs. And so I would, at the beginning of my career, just strictly sing, like Latin American standards, boleros, some mariachi songs,
Yes, right.
that type of thing. And then later on in life, actually, not that long ago, I had a chance to do a mariachi opera with Mariachi Vargas de Tecalitlan, the very best mariachi in Mexico.
Wow.
And
Yes, the
that was,
Mariachi Vargas, very famous.
yes, quite an experience. Cruzar la cara de la luna is the name of the opera. We did that production in Los Angeles, Northridge, actually.
So, being the vocal historian that I am and loving vocal technique and singers in general, and of course, tenors most of all, and I look at the history of Mexico and how much I love Mexico. I don't know if you know, but I was raised in a very highly populated Mexican neighborhood
Yes, I
where
remember. I remember your old neighborhood. Yeah.
where I grew up. So, anyhow, analyzing the whole Mexican culture, the relationship to music and mariachi, I think there is a direct link to why we see so many singers from Mexico in the opera community now. Do you think there is a relationship to
Oh,
that?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it, and the very interesting thing about it, I think, is that mariachi singers, without really realizing it, they are forced to train themselves technique, or a version of technique,
Yes.
because you think that singing in a theater with an 80-piece orchestra is difficult. Try singing with a 12-piece mariachi in the middle of a sea of people without amplification and get the voice through it, in the middle of a huge party. So yeah, they have to learn how to sing and project and cut through all of that noise, to do their shows in parties, or family gatherings, whatever it may be. And so they learn from who they listen to, and oftentimes, it's a craft that is passed from one generation to another. And the father singer teaches the son, and the son teaches a grandkid, and so forth and so on. And so it's kind of passed on, and they
Amazing.
learn elements of technique that you could really only learn otherwise in the studio, in the classical studio.
Well, a few years back, maybe, I don't know, five, six, seven, my wife and I went to Mexico City to visit her cousin. And there we met a former student of mine by the name of Camilla, and also Jose Manuel Chu. I don't know if you know him, a tenor.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, and anyhow, we went to a restaurant where they had mariachis. Okay. And Jose Manuel was going to be auditioning at Bellas Artes, right? So, anyhow, we're there, mariachi singing. And through one thing or another, they asked me to sing with them. Okay. I had had about 4 or 5 tequilas already, so
Oh,
I'm
you were
like,
ready then.
whatever, let's go. And I get up and I sing with this guy, and this older gentleman singing the lead of Granada. He absolutely blew me out of the house. His voice was so much bigger than mine. And my voice has always been pretty big, right?
Your voice is plenty big.
But that guy, it was a joke. And even Jose Manuel got up and sang, and it's like, here's this old man had been singing mariachi probably his whole life and had to learn how to focus that instrument to be powerful enough to sing over those trumpets right in his ears.
Yeah.
It's amazing that intuitively, either it's like being thrown into the lake and not knowing how to swim. Either you learn how to swim or you drown.
Yeah, it's kind of trial by fire,
Right?
Yeah. But it's amazing how they navigate that. They just manage to. They have to because it's their livelihood, well, just like ours. In the theaters, but
Yes.
they might have to go to a gig 3 times in a day, or they might have to do this every day. Whereas we at least get a break in between performances.
Yes. And I've trained some of the mariachi groups from Mexico. And when I'm hearing them up close, it's freaking amazing. The volume. And when I say volume, I don't mean necessarily loudness, but the volume of sound, the amount of sound, the
Yeah.
frequencies that they're hitting on multiple frequencies to be able to carry. Anyhow, I'm in love with that history of Mexico and what it's done for the opera world in general. And of course, you're a native of Mexico and have an absolute beautiful voice. And I think now's a good time to play for the audience your Largo. What do you think? Where was that at? Tell us
All right.
about that.
This was an invitation already quite a number of years ago to sing for the Young Artists Foundation of LA. And it was at the Beverly Hills Hotel. They had this gala, and it was actually to promote and I think raise funds also for this young orchestra, this orchestra of young musicians, super talented. And I was invited to sing this piece, and I got the fortune of being introduced by Maverick Griffin. So I was like, I didn't know who he was at the time, but when I learned, I was like, holy cow, I just got introduced by this amazing personality. And yeah, that was great fun.
Wonderful. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard right. He said Merv Griffin. So here you go. Gregorio Gonzalez.
Gregorio Gonzalez.
La
Gregorio!
They love that.
There was a
Wow.
time where I couldn't listen to that for a long time. You know how it is when you are very you recorded something really recently. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that, or oh, I could have done that better. That type of thing. It helps to have a lot of time in between to finally just really be objective about it. You go,
Yeah. And do you find that maybe you can appreciate it more as you get further away from it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that brings great memories, mostly of auditions, really, because I use that in auditions all the time.
Well, it sounds like you really had it down because you went to those top notes and they're just so ringing and free and easy.
Thank you. I mean, when I sang that piece, I think it was right around the time when I was already playing with the tenor thing, and so that upper range was pretty solid up
Yeah.
there.
Well, even the great Leonard Warren, who sang that aria too, and had incredible high notes, many times in reviews they referred to him. He should be singing tenor. Well, so he had a high C. Clearly, he was a baritone, though. It just was an amazing instrument. Just because you have the high notes doesn't mean you're necessarily a tenor. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think there is a danger in having really good high notes when you're a baritone. Yeah, immediately people tell him, "Oh, have you ever thought about singing tenor?"
Uh-huh.
And that would happen to me a lot. I kind of ignored it for a while, but then when someone like Placido Domingo tells you that, well, you kind of owe it to yourself to at least give it a try, and that's what happened
Mm-hmm.
in my case. So I gave it a try, and I made it work for a few years, and then I decided I wasn't really meant to be it, So
Yeah.
I came back down to baritone.
I
But
always use the analogy of a glove. Okay, you could put the glove on, but then after a while, you just see that it doesn't quite fit right.
yeah, yeah, and it's for me, um, it wasn't just about making a career out of it. It's like what did it mean lifestyle wise? And I just had to make so many
Ooh.
compromises. I had to be so super disciplined about it.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about drinking coffee, forget about eating acidic foods, forget about alcohol, forget about eating a
Mm-hmm.
lot, forget about eating late, which is already was a challenge because as you know we rehearse until very late and then
Yes.
I end up super hungry.
No,
um
no tacos with a lot of hot sauce on there.
no tacos with salsa de chile morita, man.
Oh,
Come on.
qué bárbaro. No me digas.
Yeah. So yeah, big sacrifices also, like you have to make sure you sleep enough. And you get into this sort of hypochondriac mode where you didn't feel like you slept enough. You're like, oh my God, I wonder how my day is going to go now. You
Yes.
would psych yourself into thinking about all these horrible scenarios. It was not an easy way to live being a tenor, to be honest with
It's really not a natural voice for the majority of the
you. No.
population.
And that's why tenors get paid so much, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Well, you did it, brother. I'm proud of you for what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
You've done a lot. Yeah, and you've impressed the world. I read your reviews on the intro. Not bad when you have Placido Domingo bragging about you, my friend.
Yeah.
So I heard that you have this really new, exciting project coming up. It's some new music that's recently composed, and you're a part of the project. What is that all about?
So I had the fortune of being asked to sing, well, the leading role really in this phenomenal piece. It's a Lorca suite. It's a Symphony Number 2 by Ian Krauss, composer, phenomenal composer from Los Angeles, whose music I had grown to love over the years. So I was very consider myself very lucky to have been asked to do this, and it's a project that also I have special love for because he wanted to go do it with a Mexican orchestra. So we traveled to Mexico and we
Mm.
recorded this phenomenal piece, which I think he first wrote for guitar and then it kind of morphed over the years. And it's a symphonic, very grand, just fabulous kind of sound, fantastic moments in it. And we went to Mexico to record it with Mexican artists, which I loved. I loved that about it.
Wonderful.
We worked with a phenomenal orchestra of young musicians and some soloist singers from one of the programs, training programs down there. And yeah, that was an incredible experience. We went to record at the Churubusco Studios, which is this legendary studio where a lot of the films of the golden era of Mexican film were
Wow.
recorded. So yeah, it was such a full experience for me, really fantastic. I look forward to it coming out. Might be coming out towards the end of this year, maybe at the beginning of next year. I know Ian is putting the final touches on it now. And yeah, look forward to it being available to people. It's a fantastic piece, and it's based on the Romancero Gitano and other poetry by Federico Garcia Lorca. So it's a very, very powerful piece.
Congratulations on that, my friend.
That's good.
All right, man. So I'm really excited for this project that you have. Do you have a recording that we could play right now for it?
Yeah, I have a bit of a snippet from the last movement that I'd love to share with you. It's one of the main motifs in the piece, so to say.
Okay.
And beautiful, beautiful music, soaring, powerful. You will hear it.
How awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's check out this new piece. Here we go.
Los caballos negros son, las cerraduras son negras, negras. Sobre las capas relucen manchas de tinta y de cera. Tinta y de cera, tienen por eso no lloran de plomo las calaveras. Con el alma de charol vienen por la carretera. Ordenan silencios de coma oscura y miedos de fina arena. Pasan si quieren pasar y ocultan en la cabeza una vaga astronomía de pistolas inconcretas. Oh, ciudad de los gitanos, ciudad de los gitanos, ciudad de los
Wow, brother, what a wonderful piece, and you sound absolutely fantastic. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being here every Sunday on the Daniel Hendrick Experience. Don't forget, you can find us at danielhendrick.com, and there you go to the link for Buzzsprout. You could find all the audio podcasts, but don't forget, also, you go to YouTube and type in the Daniel Hendrick Experience, and you will find the video version so you can see this handsome young man in his studio there in Texas in person. See what it looks like on video. So until next time, thank you for supporting the show. And again, the letters, I love that. The emails and the text. Keep sending them in. You guys are awesome. I love you all. Until next time, a più tardi. Bye, guys. Take a breath and walk with